lack of diversity in the fashion industry?
I actually do believe that there is a lack of diversity in the fashion industry. I think that we often tend to have a perception of beauty, and we tend to have a certain view that we want beauty to be, and often that ends up being, even whether it's knowingly or unknowingly, maybe a more lighter skinned person, or maybe a more slender person rather than someone who's a little bit more overweight or a little bit more darker skinned. So I think that we unknowingly develop perceptions of beauty which does decrease the amount of diversity. I don't think I've seen a lot of Indians in the fashion industry. I don't think I've seen a lot of different cultures that really could be beautifully represented. They aren't, and I think that that's something that we really should work towards and really try to move forward in.
Have we lost sight of racism in the industry?
I think we have not lost sight of racism, but I feel a little hesitant to call it racism. But I think, like I said earlier, I don't think it's necessarily the idea that I do not want a certain group of people to be in the fashion industry. I think it's more about how people perceive their beauty and how people want their beauty to be revealed to people, and that's like various companies doing it for their lines and for their fashion, clothing, anything it might be. The things that they do are not necessarily out of racism, but out of what makes their product stand out the most, and often that in turn causes it to be less diverse or racist because of the choices that they choose, and that's about it.
About how many albino models have you seen recently in fashion?
I've seen none.
Or how many transgender models have you seen recently?
I have not. I've actually only known one, but she really didn't get as far as I expected because she doesn't have that platform to be able to rise in the fashion industry because of the labels that have been put on her as a transgender. So I think that I only know one, but that's not enough. I should know more.
So recently there has been an influx of plus size models, but why do you only see female plus size models and not close to non-existent any males?
Yeah, it is pretty much non-existent. I haven't seen any male plus size models. I think that because women are more, there are a lot more, I guess there's a lot more slack for women in the sense that I guess once they get older, or like once their body changes, like we give a lot of excuses to why women may end up being plus size or why they end up having to look like that. We might say pregnancy, things like that cause them to maybe look a little bit more bigger than they initially were. So like we kind of give a lot more excuses to women than we do men, and we essentially, when we see any kind of plus size guy model, we essentially don't connotate them with any good product or anything that's good essentially. So I think that that's something that's really troublesome, that we need to be able to give the same level of slack to men as we do for women and be able to let them experience the same amount of joy being whatever body type they are.
Do you think the few plus size models that are represented, do you think they're a correct portrayal of what actual plus size people look like?
It depends. I think that some plus size models do, I guess, connotate or they do represent a certain type of people, but I do believe that after a certain point there are a lot of people that are underrepresented, and I think that that's something that fashion should be. It should be a language for everybody, not just for people who are pretty or for people who are somewhat plus size and not full on maybe obese. And I'm not saying that in a bad way, but I mean that in a very representative way, that that's what fashion should be. That is the importance of fashion. That's why fashion has been successful. Fashion is a part of all of our lives. Therefore, it doesn't matter what kind of body type you are. So therefore, I feel that that's a step that the fashion industry should take in representing every type of person.
So why do you think people of different ethnicities or different backgrounds aren't necessarily hired for models?
I don't know why they necessarily wouldn't be hired as a model. That's I'm kind of unaware of the things that surround their applications or what qualifications that require them to be a model. But I do know that sometimes the reason why people may not enter the fashion industry is because of the feeling that they might not get very far. And I think that that's why you might not see as much diversity going into the fashion industry, because they do have fears about how stable their life will be if they do choose this kind of profession to like live by and earn their money by. Some people just feel like, well, if I do go into this industry, will I make any money? Will I be able to survive? So exactly, I think that it's not necessarily whether they're going to get accepted into their job, but more of how exactly they're going to be able to make a livelihood of that job, and why, if they're going into the fashion industry in the first place. So I think the first step shouldn't be why other ethnicities aren't going in or being qualified or accepted, but rather how the fashion industry can be more open to accepting these people so that they can actually have a chance at getting a job in the fashion industry.
What are ways for the fashion industry to become more accepting, or one way to convince authority to diversify fashion?
I can't say anything else besides be more open. And that's not something that you can do through a legality, through a law or anything, but it's just people's perceptions, people's minds, people's character. And I think that just as diverse as fashion is, just as diverse as the clothing we wear, the patterns we wear, the colors we wear, that's exactly how the people that are represented and the people who model those styles should be. So just as our styles are so diverse and so colorful, the people who model them should be just as colorful. And that's exactly what the fashion industry should understand, and only then will there be any change. Thank you.
Yes, Tina!
Okay, it's recording, so you guys, it's fine, okay?